Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. I've ended up caught in a web of uncertainty, still reeling from that mysterious letter. It's not that I hadn't noticed changes in my wife over the past month, but they were there. Barbara, usually full of energy and passion, had become increasingly moody and withdrawn. At first, I chalked it up to the stress of her job after a recent promotion. Whenever I tried to bring it up, she brushed me off, and to be honest, I was preoccupied with my own issues. Recently, I signed a promising new contract that I believed could take my career to new heights. But then, that letter appeared in my mailbox, unraveling the tangled threads of my concerns. It didn't just reveal a troubling situation. It pointed directly to the source of my unease. I knew I had to act quickly. I couldn't shake the feeling that time was slipping away. Finally, it dawned on me why Barbara had been so silent through all of this. The name that haunted my thoughts was Harry Clark, a senior manager at the company where Barbara worked. It didn't take long to connect the dots. He was her new boss. A striking figure, 6 feet tall, he towered over my petite wife, and over me for that matter. Not that I was a giant myself, but I wasn't the type to back down easily. The letter served as a stern warning against confronting Barbara directly with the disturbing evidence I had received. A line had been crossed, and I needed to tread carefully. Barbara had an upcoming formal event, and I had already told her I couldn't take time off to join her. But that was then, and now, I had made up my mind. I would go to that event. I would keep my eyes wide open, determined to find out if there was any truth to the unsettling connection between my wife and Clark. If things went wrong, it could lead to serious consequences. Yes, that's exactly what I was hinting at. But who had sent that mysterious letter? Suddenly, I made a bold declaration. Tomorrow, I'm going to the corporate event. Barbara responded too quickly. You don't have to, Adam. You've got more important things to deal with right now. There's nothing more important to me than my wife, I countered, my tone firm. Adam, it's not exactly a dance, she said, her voice tinged with unease. You'll probably be bored to tears. Are spouses allowed? I asked, already anticipating her answer. You know they are, she reluctantly agreed, and many of them will be there. I suppose so, she admitted, her hesitation clear. Honestly, it's not really your crowd. Are you uncomfortable with me being there, Barbara? I asked, a knot forming in my stomach. Of course not, Adam. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, and it pierced my heart. Well, then I'm going, I declared, making up my mind. End of discussion. I might not have had the prestigious education or high-level training that many of the men at that gathering could boast of, but I had done my best. My hair was neatly combed, and I wore a well-fitted suit. In fact, I had several, each one sharper than the last. Of course, I would never wear it to work. My job involves getting my hands dirty, and formal clothes aren't exactly suited for that. Work had worn me out, so I decided to take a couple of days off to recharge. My boss wasn't thrilled with my decision, but after I laid out my reasons, he eventually agreed. Though not without a fight, he urged me to reconsider and issued a few stern warnings, as if I were the type to dive headfirst into trouble. In the end, Barbara and I got ready for the evening, and I felt sharper than usual, while Barbara looked absolutely stunning. She stood barely 5 feet tall, but she had charisma and charm in abundance. We had met at the gym years ago, and it was clear she had maintained her fitness over the years. The black dress Barbara wore hugged her curves perfectly, and the high heels made her almost as tall as I was. As the evening unfolded, I quickly realized who Clark was. I was struck by how Barbara deliberately avoided being alone with him, and I couldn't help but wonder if I was the only one who noticed. Perhaps I was, but if not for that letter, I likely wouldn't have picked up on the tension. I tried to stay in the background, letting her mingle and introduce herself, engaging in the usual small talk that seemed to be the norm that evening. Just when I started to think I was wasting my time, fate threw me a curveball. Suddenly, they were alone together on the bustling dance floor. He had that unmistakable look of a cat that had just caught the canary, with smug satisfaction written all over his face. Meanwhile, Barbara seemed caught in a web of awkwardness, her eyes darting around as if searching for me, her silent observer. And I watched, though I wasn't thrilled with the scene unfolding before me. The way his hands moved closer to her made my stomach churn. I didn't like it one bit, but I had to act cautiously. Patience was my ally, and it seemed that my moment was just on the horizon. "Hello," I began, finally catching his eye. "Harry Clark, right?" He responded with a hint of caution. "That's right. I'm sorry, but you look familiar. I can't quite place you." "I'm from the West Office," I said, leveraging the only connection I had to my advantage. A wave of relief washed over me. My decision to keep my distance from Barbara had paid off. "Ah," he exclaimed, extending his hand. "You must be Perez, the new head of transitional acquisitions." "Yes, that's correct," I said, though I had no idea what that title entailed, and I resisted the urge to grip his hand too tightly as I shook it. "I don't know many people here yet," he continued, a smirk playing on his lips. "But I saw you dancing with that lovely blonde. Is she your wife?" "You mean Barbara Smith?" I replied, forcing a smile. He smirked knowingly, and I sensed that this wasn't just casual conversation. "Not my wife," he clarified, "but we're getting to know each other." "That's how it all starts, lucky guy," I grinned, playfully nudging him. "She's amazing, breathtaking, really. And those curves? Wow." He grinned slyly and winked back at me. "So have you touched them?" I asked, my heart racing as I awaited his response. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the confirmation I so desperately craved. For a brief second I thought he might dodge the question, but then I saw the gears turning in his head. "Yes," he confessed with an exaggerated sigh, clearly pleased with himself. "She's been entertaining me in my office. For a month now," he added, "and she's been bending over my desk, practically begging for it." "You're playing a dangerous game," I spat out, my anger barely contained. "Does she have a husband?" "Yes," he nodded solemnly. "She's got a husband, some pathetic loser, completely unqualified. I have no idea why she's still with him." "What does he even do for a living?" I asked him with a playful grin, eager to dig deeper into the situation. "What's his name?" He shrugged, confusion clouding his face. "I have no idea," he admitted. "From what I gathered, he didn't even have a steady job. It seems like he spent half his time at home, living off his wife's income." "Tell me his name," I repeated, savoring the fact that my wife hadn't even come close to breaking our vows. "I think she calls him Adam," he grumbled, irritation creeping into his voice. "Adam Smith, probably." At that point, I couldn't resist correcting him. "Actually, it's Adam Perez. Smith is her maiden name, which she uses for work." "Why would she do that?" he asked, still not grasping the trouble he was in. "We agreed on it," I replied, letting my words sink in. "What do you mean you—" he began, his voice trailing off in shock. "I mean her husband," I calmly stated, watching his expression change. Understanding dawned on him, and he laughed, finally connecting the dots. "Here to beg me to please her?" "I'm here to teach you a lesson in manners," I sighed, trying to keep my composure. "A runt like you?" he sneered, clearly underestimating me. He was 5 or 6 inches taller and probably twice my weight. And then, in a moment of desperation, I did something truly provocative. I wanted to provoke a reaction that would go unnoticed by the casual observers around us, so I spat at him. "You little bastard!" he roared, finally taking the bait and lunging at me. Maybe he recognized me as Barbara's husband, but thankfully he didn't dig deeper. He swung at me, and while I dodged the blow, I allowed him to land a hit, jerking back sharply as if struck hard. Though you doubt my abilities, let me assure you that my so-called part-time job gave me more than just a paycheck. "I'm going to lay you out!" he yelled, flailing his arms like a windmill in a storm as he chased after me. Clearly, he thought he could knock me out while I reminded myself to stay calm and not resort to using my fists. Smirking, I realized that any observer would see who started the fight, and I was ready to deliver the promised lesson. Dodging his wild swings felt like child's play. Finally, when I struck back, my slap landed on him with such force that he staggered back, momentarily stunned. "You fight like a woman," he sneered and lunged at me again. Big mistake. 6 swift slaps later, he was sprawled on the ground, and I stood over him, adrenaline coursing through my veins, a sense of satisfaction settling in my soul. "For God's sake, Adam, what have you done?" my wife Barbara exclaimed, rushing to pull me away from him. "You shouldn't have gone this far, Adam," she scolded, concern etched on her face. "You shouldn't have slept with him. You destroyed 30 years of marriage," I replied with hatred. "You've deeply hurt me, and now you'll regret it." "No, Adam, you've got it all wrong." During my conversation with Harry, I had turned on a voice recorder, and it was evidence of her infidelity. Approaching the microphone, I played the recording of the conversation. Everyone around turned to look at me, clearly surprised by what they heard. Some whispered, some smirked. The recording ended, and I walked out of the building, marking the end of my marriage. Soon after, Barbara and her lover were fired. The CEO was at the event and witnessed everything. The next day, I filed for divorce, using our prenuptial agreement, and Barbara left our marriage with $20,000, and I began to move on. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel.